Welcome, welcome. Today I'm here to do a final review on the Powerless trilogy because I finished Fearless a couple days ago, maybe last week, and I want to do a full review on all three of the Powerless books, including the novella Powerful. So maybe that might prompt you or sway you to read the series, because I'm telling you, if you have any interest in a sizzling enemies to lovers love triangle fantasy, including trials and games where you fight to the death to people, I highly recommend reading Powerless. So I already did a review for Powerless, so if you want to kind of check that out, feel free to, because that's me kind of just rambling and ranting about just this book, just the first one. Can you imagine what I'm about to say for all three of these? So we're gonna start with Powerless, the namesake of the trilogy. This book had me so engaged. When I tell you how engaged I was in this book, there is no way I could put this book down. I read over half of it in an entire day because I could not put it down. I just had to finish it. It was so sad at the end, and if you've read it, you know why. If you haven't read it, find out why. But this book basically is about Peyton and Kai, and Peyton is a thief from the loot. She doesn't really come from much. The only family she's ever known has passed away, and so she and her best friend Adina live on the streets together. And she sees Kai, not knowing he's the future enforcer of Ilya, on the streets and robs him blind of all of his coins, and later finds out that that was Kai Azer, the enforcer of Ilya royalty. And she's like, oh, I've done messed up. And later that day, she finds her name on the list for the trials, and she's like, oh, I really messed up, because she thinks the reason that she is in these trials is because she robbed the enforcer and then she fought the silencer that was going to try to kill him. So she's like, something ties together, something adds up, and it's not good. It's not a good thing that ties together and adds up. And so she goes through the trials, trial 1, trial 2, and trial 3. And trial 3 goes a bit wrong. It's not good. And there are balls in between these trials, and she's in pretty dresses, and Adina gets to come to the castle to be her official seamstress. And it's such a good book until it gets a little dicey. And what I do personally, it was the same way when I read A Court of Thorns and Roses. If something happens that leaves me shook, I like to refer to the author by their first names. And Lauren, what have you done? So this is a perfect example of how a first book in a trilogy should look like. It's full of power, romance, twists, turns. It's I love Kai, I love Peyton and Adina, their friendship. I just really loved Powerless. Powerful, this is the sprayed edges edition. Look at those gorgeous sprayed edges. Powerful is a little novella that takes place through the timeline of Powerless, if that makes sense. So while everything is happening with the trials and all of that, Powerful is themed around Adina's story, and it's in Adina and Mac's point of view, which Mac is a new character who comes back later, and we'll get to that in a moment. But Mac is a character who also lives on the Loot and is trying to get into the kingdom to save Hera, a character in Powerless, to get her out of the trials of her cousins. And so Adina is introduced to Mac, and they have a little fling. It's so cute. Such a wholesome book. Literally took me a day to read. Like, I started it and finished it all in the same hour. Like, it's so easy to read. It's really sad though, and I'm not gonna spoil. I'm not gonna say why, but if you read the ending of Powerless, you know why. So that was kind of hard to read, but perfect book. Reckless hurt. It really hurt because I want to talk about the plot of Reckless, but to do that would to spoil a little bit of the ending of Powerless, and I really don't want to do that. But you know what? If you were to read the little inside flap, you would see it anyway. So Peyton is banished from Ilia. Kai banished her. And as the new enforcer of Ilia, and Kit as the new king of Ilia, Kit orders Kai in his first mission to go hunt Peyton down and find her. Bring her back to the castle to face her punishment for what she did. We're not gonna say what she did, but she's in a lot of trouble. So that's kind of the plot of Reckless. And as Kai goes and hunts her down, he realizes that he really loves her, and he's trying to fight the feelings that he has for her, because he knows that, like, falling in love with her and starting something with her is just gonna be bad for both sides of the relationship, because they're not meant to be together. They're not meant to be together, and that's what's so sad, because they're so perfect together. And it's full of cute and sweet moments, but it's also full of tears. I cried just like I did with Powerless, and just like I did with Fearless. I have never cried every book in a trilogy before. This was a first, and so that's also what made this so special. But at the beginning of the book, he is very much like, I'm gonna do this for Kit. I'm going to bring her back, and whatever happens, I'm gonna try not to get attached, because he knows if he gets attached, then things are just gonna go wrong. And so he brings her back, and as she's about to be found, he hasn't been back in the castle in 2 weeks. As she's about to be found, he tells her, we should run away together. You should run and not come back to what I'm about to come back to. And then they go back, and what do they find when they get back to the castle? Kit has arranged to marry her. When I tell you I screamed, I was so mad, because Kai and Peyton were endgame, okay? They were meant to be together, and Kit ruined that. Kit was like, I either have to marry her or I have to kill her. Those were not your only two options, okay? You could have done something other than marrying her. You know, maybe instead of marrying her and instead of killing her, there were other ways. And the caption on the front says, betrothed, betrayed, destined for each other. And then the back says, forever my undoing, which is something that Kai always said to Peyton. He always told Peyton, you will be my undoing. How, Lauren? And what I love about this book in specific is the copy that I have is the Walmart exclusive, and it has this beautiful artwork on the other side of the cover. And I love the artwork. So, as Peyton is like, I'm about to put the cover back on inside out, other way around. As Peyton is figuring out and realizing that she's about to marry someone she doesn't love, someone she doesn't want to marry, the kingdom of Ilia is not happy that an ordinary is about to be their queen. They're like, no, let's not have an ordinary as our queen. And Kit comes up with the idea to host another series of trials for Peyton. Another series of trials. She has to go through all that she went through in the first book again, just to prove that she can be queen. And one of my favorite scenes of this book is when I don't know if this is exact, like word for word, but when she says something along the lines of, I will do these trials, and when I more than survive, if you don't like me as queen, I can't see the scowl on your face when you're bowed at my feet. And I was like, pop off, baddie. She's such a baddie. Okay, so the first challenge that she has to do in these series of trials is to retrieve this crown from the grave of one of the first queens of Ilia. And that's going to be her crown when she becomes queen. So for her to become queen, she has to get that crown out of that grave. And she does, like the baddie she is. The second trial is one of the most important, and that is she has to go on a ship and sail across the shallows, which are very dangerous waters full of monsters, and she has to go deliver roses to the kingdom of, I want to say Isram. Let me confirm. Yes, the kingdom of Isram. So it's gonna be hard to kind of point out which is which, but you know, here's the Scorches, and here's the Loot Alley. It doesn't point out Ilia, I don't think. This is all of this is the shallows. You can see monsters. This is Isram. So she's got to go there and deliver these roses as kind of like a peace offering, like, hey, we should trade, stuff like that. And she meets the queen of Isram. And did I mention that Kai volunteers as tribute to go with her? He goes with her to Isram on a boat where Kit is not. So they got to have some quality time together, and I really loved that because, you know, I mean, obviously this is not a smut book, it's YA, but I just thought like the whole, they spent time together, that was so cute. And I don't want to dwell too much on it because if you read the book, I want you to have that wholesome moment for yourself, but it's so cute. I love them. And then the final trial was for her to fight someone to the death, and after that person died, she could become queen. This is where Mac comes in. So if you read the novella, you find out that Mac has the same power as Kai. I believe he's a wielder, I believe is the name for it. And he has the same power as Kai. And so I don't want to say too much. I don't want to spoil it. So we're going to move past that. Mac comes back in, and so after that, they find out that Kid is crazy. And I don't want to spoil the end of this book because I want everyone to have the same reaction I did, even though that might make you a little bit insane. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me yap about Powerless by Lauren Roberts. If you have like any thoughts about reading it, I would really highly recommend it because it is one of those books that will leave you bewildered in kind of the best way. It is without a doubt one of the best trilogies I have read in my life. And I mean, I went through I have a book journal, and I went through all of my 5-star reads, and I had once said I don't put 5-star reads lightly, and I do. I rate books 5 stars all the time, but all of those were 5 stars. And my taste changes all the time, but Powerless is definitely one of the best I've ever read. So anyone who's thinking about reading it, do it. You won't regret it.